Today's learning target is I can add positive and negative numbers. Let's take a look at how we add negative numbers. Okay, so for this, let's have these red dots right here represent positive numbers, and the blue dots represent negative numbers. So for every one of these, this would be a positive one. Okay, and for every one of these, this would be a negative one right here, these blue ones. So let's look at this problem right here. We have negative 3 plus a negative 2. So this box will help me represent what negative 3 plus negative 2 looks like. So I'm going to take my negative 3 and I'm going to show that here. So right here, remember each of these dots represents one negative. So that's negative 3 plus a negative 2. There's my negative 2. Now if I remove this line and now they're all together, you can see that I have negative 5 here. So all these together, there's 5 negatives. So my answer to that would be negative 5. So for this problem right here, I would have 10 of those negative blue dots, and I'm going to add another 7 of those negative blue dots. So I'd have a total of 17 of those negative blue dots. So when I add two negatives, I just put the digits together, add the digits together, and it's always going to be negative. Now let's see what happens when we add a positive number and a negative number. So here again you can see I created my box here to help me visualize this. You can do this for your homework today if you want to. So I have 3 negatives, okay, and I'm going to represent those with these blue circles. So there's 3 of those negatives there. Oops, get the third one, there we go. And 2 positives, I'll put those over here. Now when we're adding positive and negative numbers, one positive number and one negative number together cancel each other out. Think of it like this. If this is a scoreboard here, and the negatives have 3 points, and the positives have 2, okay, well this point and this point cancel each other out, right? And this point cancel each other out. So what are we left with? Well, we've got 1 in the negatives. So in this case, a negative 3 plus positive 2 equals negative 1. Let's say I had this problem right here. So I have 4 plus a negative 2. Okay, so the same thing, I can represent that. I'm using like my scoreboard here. Oops, let me get that other one. There we go. And there's my positive 4, and here's negative 2. Now, again, think of it like a scoreboard. What cancels out? Well, every positive and every negative, they'll cancel each other out. Okay, now what am I left with? Well, I can see that there are 2, and they're positive. So in this case, I'd have 4 plus negative 2, and I'm left with 2. Let's take a look at a problem with a little bigger digits, or bigger numbers here. So we have 13 plus a negative 17. Now if I wanted, I could create this box and the scoreboard and put 13 positives, and I could put 17 negatives in here, and I could cancel out and see. But in my head I'm visualizing I have 13 here and I have 17 here. Well, I know these 13 are going to cancel out 13 from this side. So really what that gives me is this, right? Because I'm canceling out 13 of these 17, and that leaves me with 4. But be careful, it's not positive 4. Remember the 17 I had were negatives. Okay, so if I do that, I'm left with 4 negatives. So the answer to this is negative 4. So if you do it this way, the key to remember is my answer negative or positive? And you can always tell that by seeing which had more to start with, the negatives or the positives. In this case, there were more negatives, so my answer is going to be negative. Let's take a look at one more. I'm going to solve this problem, negative 6 plus 20, but I'm going to do it without this box here. So right away I know my answer is going to be positive because I have 20 positives and only 6 negatives. So when I cancel out these negatives, I'm going to have positives left over. So to cancel out these 6 negatives, I'm going to need to take 6 positives from here just to cancel those out. So if I did that, I'm taking away 6 of those positives right here, cancels those out, and I'm left with 14. So my answer to this problem is 14, and this could be a way you show your work today. Let's look at one more problem here. You can see this is a little different. I'm dealing with three numbers that I'm adding. And we know, based on our math properties that we've talked about, that when we're adding, it doesn't matter what order we add in. I could add the negative 15 and 2 together first. I could do the 2 and the negative 2 together, however I want to do it. So if I wanted, I could take this negative 15 plus this negative 2, and I know that would give me negative 17, right? Because I'm taking 15 of these negatives, and then I'm adding two more of those negatives, and I would get 17 negatives. So I'd write that down. I'd show it like that, like this, and then I'd go like that, and now I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, I have 2 plus negative 17, so I want to cancel out this, and I do that by taking 2 of these away to cancel these 2 out, right? And so I'd take away from this 17, I'd take away 2, that would cancel that out, and that would leave me with 15 of those negatives. But I'll be honest, that's not the way I would have solved it. But in math, we know there's always more than one way. But here's why it's helpful to know the math properties. I can use the commutative property, which says I can add these in any order. So look what happens. If I add negative 2 plus 2, what happens? Well, let's see. I have 2 of these positives and 2 of those negatives, and they're going to cancel each other out. So really, when I look at this and this cancel out, and I'm left with negative 15. And again, remember, show me your work, but this might be the way you show it to me. You write the problem out, you cross out those two, I know you're thinking, and here's what you're left with.